A man who's been a long-time advocate of buying Australian-made products, not just buying them, but making things here, is, of course, Dick Smith, who I'm delighted to say is on the line. How are you, Dick?
Luke, great to be talking to you again. I'm really well.
Fantastic to hear. It really is now, isn't it? More than ever, we've got to support Australian business and we've got to encourage people who are prepared to take a risk to go out there and make stuff.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Just recently, I bought myself a little camper van. It's called a Suncamper. But what I couldn't believe, first of all, it's made in Australia. It's on a Toyota body, but they manufacture the actual camper. But on the back, there was this aluminium sort of container that I bought. And naturally, I thought it came from China. It was beautifully made, but in small writing, it had "Made in Australia." So there you are. We can do it.
You're listening to Nights with Luke Grant, filling in for John Stanley on Sydney's 2GB 873.
Now, no surprises here. The COVID-19 crisis has brought forward many challenges here, but none more than just how reliant our economy is on overseas manufacturers and supply chains. With our borders closed to the outside world and our relationship with China as rocky as it's ever been, it's become more apparent than ever that Australians need to support other Australians, and that, of course, starts with business. Now, if I might just momentarily reflect on something I've been saying about who have we relied on for health help during this. It wasn't the WHO, wasn't the USA, wasn't the UK, it was us. Our leaders prescribing what we should do to keep each other safe. And, of course, we've got through that in the main, with the exception, I guess, of Victoria at this point, reasonably unscathed, at least if you compare us to overseas nations. So at the end of the day, post-COVID-19, line in the sand, the best people to rely on, well, other Australians. So are we fair income now? Because we've been asked to be fair income before. You know, if you don't keep buying Holdens, one day we won't make a car here. Guess what happened? And there are a million examples of that. A man who's been a long-time advocate of buying Australian-made products, not just buying them, but making things here, is, of course, Dick Smith, who I'm delighted to say is on the line. How are you, Dick?
Luke, great to be talking to you again. I'm really well.
Fantastic to hear. It really is now, isn't it? More than ever, we've got to support Australian business and we've got to encourage people who are prepared to take a risk to go out there and make stuff.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Just recently, I bought myself a little camper van. It's called a Suncamper. But what I couldn't believe, first of all, it's made in Australia. It's on a Toyota body, but they manufacture the actual camper. But on the back, there was this aluminium sort of container that I bought. And naturally, I thought it came from China. It was beautifully made, but in small writing, it had "Made in Australia." So there you are. We can do it.
Yeah. How do we encourage people that, like you, are prepared to go out there and make things here? And how do we encourage people to support those entrepreneurs? Because it seems we've too often failed in doing so.
Absolutely. Look, it doesn't normally cost that much more, but we should fix the labelling rules. At the moment, there's no label that says Australian-owned. There's an Australian-made logo, but that's mainly used by foreign companies. Unfortunately, the politicians don't want to upset the foreign companies, and so they won't allow a label saying Australian-owned.
A couple of weeks back, you made the point about Kmart and their shelves being empty, the fact that they had their products made in China. And when you go to those major department stores or family stores, that's generally what you get to see. There's not a lot of Australian stuff on the shelves, or have I got that wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. Hardly anything Australian on the shelves. You can't even buy the typical sort of baseball American cap that's made in Australia. I reckon if someone made them, and especially made T-shirts, so you'd get people who'd pay any price just to be proud and say, look, this is Australian made.
Yeah. How do these retailers change their behaviours? Because you can't imagine that Kmart all of a sudden is going to wake up with a conscience tomorrow and say, righto, as from now, 20% or 30% or whatever percent of our stuff that we stock in our stores has to be made in this country. But we need something like that, surely.
Yeah, we do. We have it with television. You'd think we could have it with buying goods. Look, the big thing for people to do is just to look and try and find that label that says Australian-owned or Australian-made. You can normally find that out. Even say to the shopkeeper, look, have you got something that's Aussie-made? And if you start doing this, it's amazing. The idea will catch on and people will do it everywhere.
But we've been told, haven't we, before now, I'm talking about consumers here, that if we don't do this, we'll end up, where we are now. How do you change that behaviour?
It's difficult because China is just so cheap, and they sell things so cheap that it's very hard to compete. But look, we need to be borders are for self-interest, and we need to be able to be, basically not have to rely on other countries all the time. I was just as you. I was really disappointed when Holden closed down, and the work that was being done here by Mitsubishi. I thought that was really bad. I thought we should have a car industry.
Yeah. What about the tax treatment of Australian business? I can't help but remember back to when China put a pause on importing our barley, saying that we bailed out farmers and gave them too much support. And I think subsequent reports suggest that's just a work of fiction. Do we do enough? Does government do enough to encourage Australian business in two ways? One, to go out there and have a go, and secondly, to affect the cost of what they make?
No, probably not enough. Look, and also the bureaucracy and the cost of regulation is staggering. I've always been interested in aviation, as you know, and it's amazing there that the rules are so expensive. Operators and manufacturers can't compete with other countries, even countries that have high wages like we do.
Is there anyone in the body politic, Dick, that gets that and is prepared to go forward and do something about it? Or are the parties of government, the coalition and the Labor parties, are they beholden to unions? Are they beholden to big business to such an extent where, they won't put Australian businesses' interests first?
You're absolutely right, Luke. This is the problem, that the big foreign companies have the most incredible lobbying powers in Canberra. But there is one person, Bob Catter. He stands up for Australian made and owned, and we need more Bob Catters.
Yeah, we do, but we also need us, don't we? We need the everyday man and woman in the street to actually get fair income, make a decision, go into the shop, even if they buy 2 Australian things they didn't buy last week. That cumulative effect must have an impact.
Absolutely. Just as I reported with that Suncamper and getting an Australian-made box, when you actually buy, look, especially in the supermarkets, you can just fling the label around. It'll quickly show you whether it's Australian-made, and if it's Australian-owned, it'll mention that too. And Australian-made is good, but Australian-made and owned is even better. And look, sometimes it only costs 30 cents more or 50 cents more.
What about when you were making all those wonderful products, which I'm proud to say I supported, in supermarkets? I mean, you as a great Australian hit the ultimate brick wall, didn't you?
Absolutely. Look, we had to get at least 3% of the market share to be able to stay on the shelves. But we couldn't do that because in some cases, say our peanut butter, which was made with Aussie peanuts and Aussie farmers and processed here, was costing more than $1 higher than the Aldi product. Aldi's come from Argentina, where the peanuts are not only grown, but the processed factory workers get paid next to nothing. And so we just couldn't compete with that.
Yeah. All right, Dick, thanks for sticking up for us again. Great to chat. Stay well.
Wonderful. Great to talk to you again. Thanks, Luke.